between love, the sea, and destiny. Previously on, in Nova Amesbury, Alexander divided his soul between the fertile fields and the Sea of Gaul, while Helena awaited the child growing in her womb, and Hael learned the secrets of navigation under his guidance. At the table of a memorable evening, Alexander evoked the sacred promise made to the Grande Mansa and issued the audacious challenge to bring Hael and Makeda to Carthage in search of the paternal blessing that would legitimize that improbable love between a blacksmith and a princess. Before crossing the Mediterranean, the Aletheia anchored at Douarnenez and Concarneau, where Tiberio honored Alexander with feasts and gifts worthy of a king, where documents were sealed with wax and signet rings that would record for the ages what hands and intentions had built, and where every farewell carried the particular weight of partings between sailors who know that the sea guarantees no reunion is certain. In this new episode, we will discover together how there is a weight that arrives before dawn, not sleep, not weariness, but that specific form of wakefulness the heart imposes when what lies ahead exceeds one's capacity to simply wait lying still. Hael woke with that weight in the early hours in Concarneau, and it was Alexander, warm tea in hand and words that come only from one who has sailed long enough to know that certain forms of anguish are not weakness, but reverence for the magnitude of what is to come, who helped him find peace where there had been vertigo. At the breakfast table, the golden little cakes Makeda had prepared in the dead of night will seal without words what their hearts had already known before any declaration was possible. But on the Atlantic, when Alexander speaks the name of Massalia, a silence will descend upon Helena that is not an absence of thought. It is too great a presence of memory. The day her parents went out to fish and the sea kept secret where it carried them. And when Amina, her arm extended toward the horizon and her voice bearing the serenity of one who announces what was always promised, says, "The land of the sun," it will be with eyes still wet from an honored grief and a heart simultaneously heavy and free that the crew will behold Africa revealing itself for the very first time. The invisible weight of dawn. There are moments when silence speaks louder than any word ever could. Moments when the heart awakens before the eyes have even opened, not because of some external sound, not at the call of light, but because of an invisible weight that settles in the chest like an anchor cast into deep waters, one that does not descend slowly, but sinks with that particular velocity of things that were always destined to arrive. That was precisely how Hael found himself in the singular small hours of Concarneau, a harbor city bathed in Atlantic mist where the winds off the sea arrived laden with salt, history, and unspoken promises. He had risen before the dawn dared to tinge the horizon, as though destiny already knew this would be a day unlike all others, a day when the course of his life would change forever, and had decided that such a change deserved to be received standing. He struck flint against a small pile of fine wood shavings with the precision of one who has performed that gesture hundreds of times. But this time, there was something different in the act, a denser intention, as though the fire he was summoning into the world were also a symbol of what burned within him. The first sparks danced in the cold pre-dawn air like stars refusing to be extinguished, and soon the soft crackling of the flames began to fill the silence of the house where the entire crew of the Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight had taken shelter. And to you who accompany this crossing, who enter with us this territory where blacksmiths and princesses converge upon destinies that no royal protocol ever anticipated, and where the sea holds memories that certain mornings bring back without warning, I leave a simple but essential request. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comment sharing what you feel. Every gesture of yours is a flame that joins the others, strengthening the invisible current that unites hearts across time and the mysteries that await revelation. In doing so, you do not merely support this work, you become part of this tapestry. The story continues, and it is your presence that keeps the fire alive. The crackling of the flames reached Alexander's ears with the delicacy of a whisper, yet with the efficiency of an alarm. Accustomed to the night watches of the sea, his instinct had placed him on his feet at once. And when he turned the corridor and caught sight of Hael alone before the still small flames, holding his cup of slowly steeping tea with both hands curved around it as though the warmth were evidence of something that needed to be kept close, Alexander understood everything without a single word being necessary. There was something in that image. The young man standing before the sun had risen, his gaze lost in the flames, his shoulders slightly bowed beneath a weight that was not physical, that lay bare, with the rawness only the small hours allow, the state of mind in which Hael found himself. Alexander greeted his friend with a good morning, accompanied by a roguish smile, the kind of smile only someone who truly knows another is capable of offering, the smile of one who has seen past the surface without needing to be invited. And Hael returned the greeting with a disarmed half-smile, the kind that betrays what the mouth attempts to conceal. Because Hael knew, and deep down knew that Alexander knew as well, that the anguish keeping him awake was not the danger of the voyage, not the vastness of the Atlantic they would soon have to cross, but something far more human, far older, and far more frightening than any storm. Love. His love for Makeda, the princess of Carthage, and everything that love demanded he become in order to be worthy of her. What the heart already knew. Alexander made a point of pouring the tea with his own hands, a simple gesture, yet laden with meaning, for among men who have faced storms together, small acts of care speak a language that words rarely reach, one that requires no elaboration to be received, because it arrives directly where it needs to arrive. He invited Hael to walk while the drink still burned his fingers through the cup, for he knew, from his own experience, that the movement of the body often helps to organize what the mind insists on keeping tangled. The two stepped out through the door while Concarneau still slept, their footsteps echoing slowly over the dew-slicked stones, with the ocean in the background releasing its rhythmic breath, that deep and constant sound that has existed since before men and will exist long after them, that knows nothing of any human anguish, and for that very reason carries the specific effect of putting such anguish in perspective without diminishing it. It was while walking through the mist and the salt of the Atlantic air that Alexander began to speak, not with the voice of one who counsels from above, but with the voice of one who shares what he learned at his own cost, in his own time, bearing those scars that do not appear in moments of glory, yet are precisely what made the counsel possible. He told Hael not to allow external concerns, those beyond the reach of his hands, beyond the domain of his will, to steal the peace that dwelled within him. Because inner peace is not a gift the world offers when circumstances align. It is a choice, renewed with each dawn, renewed with each conscious breath. And a man who knows where to find his own peace carries within him a strength that no title, no crown, and no throne can ever confer or take away. Alexander then spoke of Makeda with the tenderness of one who had observed her closely, not as though speaking of a distant princess wrapped in veils of protocol and solemnity, but as though describing a real person, made of flesh, dreams, and contradictions like any other soul that inhabits this world. He said that titles are merely markers, reference points that help us understand where and how each person moves through the fabric of society, with its attributions and responsibilities and functions. But that before any title, before the crown, and before the name of Carthage engraved in her lineage, there was Makeda, a young woman who longed for life with the same intensity as any heart that has not yet learned to resign itself to the ordinary, who had chosen the sea when the sea was unknown, and had chosen Hael when Hael was improbable, and who in both choices had demonstrated the kind of courage that titles do not confer, courage that must exist before any protocol, so that the protocol is worth anything at all. And then Alexander said something Hael would keep forever in the most secret vault of his memory, that Makeda radiated a particular light every time her eyes met his, not the light of one who performs joy out of courtly obligation, not the rehearsed brilliance of someone who learned from an early age that princesses must smile with elegance, but something else, something purer, more spontaneous, more uncontrollable, the kind of light the heart kindles on its own when it finds what it has been searching for, even if it did not yet know the name of what it sought. He also mentioned Amina, and upon speaking the name of Makeda's mother, a genuine smile spread across his face. For Amina was the kind of woman who does not waste approval. When she offers it, it is because it has been truly earned, in those places where character reveals itself without ornament. And Amina approved of Hael with the approval that requires no public declaration, because it manifests in the quality of the attention she devotes to those she approves of. She approved of the young man who had arrived without titles, without ostentatious fortunes, and without the pompous weight of a glorious lineage, but who carried in his eyes the honesty of those who do not know how to pretend, and in his hands the steadiness of those who do not flee when things become difficult. Hael breathed deeply. The mist still covered Concarneau, but something in it seemed less dense now, as though Alexander's words had opened an invisible window through which lighter air had entered. He thanked his friend not with a speech, but with the sincere silence of one who has been truly moved, followed by a handshake that lasted a second longer than usual, time enough to say everything for which there were no words. The two returned to the house at an unhurried pace, with the ocean still breathing in the background and the sky beginning, timidly, to sketch the first hues of a dawn that seemed to have waited for that very moment to finally reveal itself. Golden cakes and love without words. There are gestures that are declarations, not because they announce something that has not yet been said, but because they say with hands and aromas and warmth what verbal language rarely manages to convey without losing something along the way. When Alexander and Hael returned to the house, the atmosphere had transformed completely, as always happens when a group of people awakens at the same time and decides spontaneously and collectively that life deserves to be celebrated before the day has properly begun. The table was already set with the characteristic generosity of those who understand that a good meal is not merely nourishment for the body, but a ritual of communion, a moment in which human beings pause the incessant movement of existence and look one another in the eyes with genuine gratitude. The aroma filling the space was dense and welcoming, a mingling of lightly smoked fish, meats seasoned with herbs from the Gaulish coast, roasted potatoes, and something more, something sweet, delicate, arriving at the nostrils like a promise not yet revealed. It was Makeda who stepped forward, with that natural grace that need not be taught because it is born with the person, that lightness of movement which makes even the simplest gestures seem worthy of being immortalized in verse. She approached Hael carrying a plate of the golden little cakes she had prepared earlier that morning while the men were walking outside, and presented them with a smile that required no words to convey its intention, yet even so chose the most beautiful words available. They were fried cakes made of oats, apple, and honey, she said, a recipe the women of Concarneau had taught her, one which, according to local tradition, held the special gift of drawing genuine laughter and true smiles from those we hold dear. Makeda was careful to make this absolutely clear, not in a whisper, not in a secret shared between just the two of them, but in the presence of everyone gathered at the table, with the calm and steady voice of one who is neither afraid of what she feels nor ashamed to show it. There was something courageous in that gesture, the quiet courage of one who chooses vulnerability not as weakness, but as the highest form of strength. Because to tell the world, even through a plate of golden cakes, that you thought of this person upon waking, that you used your hands to create something made especially for them, That is an act of love as eloquent as any declaration spoken before witnesses and open skies. Hael bit into the first cake with the caution of someone who does not yet know what to expect. And then something happened that he had not foreseen. The flavor disarmed him completely. It was as though the oats, the apple, and the honey had conspired to create not merely a pleasant combination of tastes, but an experience that reached beyond the palate and arrived somewhere deeper, older, harder to name. The sensation of walking on clouds, he would say later. A lightness that begins on the tongue and spreads through the chest like light finding an open window. When the smile came, wide, genuine, irrepressible, the entire table seemed to breathe with relief and joy at once, with that collective exhale of those who had been quietly hoping and now see their hopes confirmed. Amina moved quickly to serve the others with the warm efficiency that was so characteristic of her. Nevem launched into enthusiastic praise with the ease of one who knows how to appreciate beauty without excessive ceremony. Edith was filled with wonder, that genuine wonder only the truly open-hearted are capable of feeling. The wonder of one who still allows herself to be surprised by the world, even after everything she has already lived. And Helena, her eyes bright with delight and already clearly planning for the future with that enchanting practicality that was her hallmark, asked Alexander at that very moment to write down the recipe, because she intended to replicate it in the kitchens of the Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight during the voyage, and when they returned to Amesbury, to serve it to the friends who had remained behind. For good things deserve to be passed on, for certain recipes are also a legacy. Farewells the sea keeps. There are farewells that are simply farewells, and there are those that carry the particular weight of partings between sailors. People who know the sea makes no promises of reunion, who treat each embrace as though it might be the last, not out of pessimism, but out of respect for what is true. The meal drew to a close with that sweet melancholy that accompanies good moments when we know they are about to end. Not because something sorrowful approaches, but because life has the habit of pressing forward, pushing beloved people into the next chapter before we have even finished savoring the present one. The bowls were gathered, the cups emptied, and one by one the members of the crew began collecting their belongings with that particular cadence of those about to depart. The tightening of packs, the checking of knots, the final glance cast around a room that had been home for a few days and now needed to be returned to the silence that precedes and follows it. Concarneau was waking slowly around them, the first voices of fishermen drifting up from the wharf, the smell of bread baking in neighboring houses, the seagulls inaugurating the day with their sharp cries that cut through the maritime air like blades of sound. The city of Gaul possessed that particular quality of places that exist at the intersection of sea and solid ground, the quality of a border, a threshold, a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary brush against each other without prior warning. It was at the wharf that Tiberio found them, accompanied by his family, his face marked by the sincere emotion of one who never learned to disguise affection with indifference, bearing that specific gift of certain people whom time makes richer within rather than harder. Tiberio embraced Hael with the effective force of one who wishes to transfer, through physical contact, all the good energy that words cannot carry alone. He looked the young man in the eyes with the tender gravity of those who speak truths without needing to raise their voice, and said that Hael was tremendously fortunate, not for the adventure itself, not for the exotic destination that awaited him, but for the people at his side. Because to have Alexander and Helena as companions on a journey was a privilege that few understood before living it, and that no one, absolutely no one, could fully comprehend without having witnessed with their own eyes the manner in which those two faced the world, with the unshakable conviction that the ending would be favorable, even when every visible piece of evidence pointed in the opposite direction. It was not naivety, not the blind hope of those who have never confronted the darkness. It was something more refined, more courageous. The conscious hope of those who have already seen the worst and still chose to believe in the best. The hope that does not depend on circumstances to exist because it has found its root in something deeper than any circumstance can reach. The farewells were made with long embraces and gazes that said everything time did not allow to be put into words. The ropes were cast off, the sails began to open to the morning wind, and the Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight commenced their slow and majestic movement toward the open horizon, like two enormous birds that finally find the right wind beneath their wings and cast themselves into the sky without hesitation, with that complete absence of doubt that animals possess when their instinct and the direction of the wind are one. From the wharf, Tiberio and his family waved until the silhouettes of the vessels grew too small to be distinguished, until the sea and the sky gradually absorbed them, the way the ocean absorbs all that is surrendered to it, with a patience that has neither beginning nor end. Between the Atlantic and what is to come. The Atlantic received them with that silent sovereignty only great spaces possess, the sovereignty of things that have existed long enough to no longer need to prove anything to anyone, that have been gazed upon by so many human eyes across so much time that they have developed, if not consciousness, at least an indifference to that scale which puts all human urgencies in perspective without judging them. The dark, deep waters rocked the vessels with a rhythm that recalled a cradle, and the wind, favorable that morning, pressed against the sails with a constancy that seemed intentional, as though nature itself were aware of the importance of the mission those people carried and had decided to cooperate. The Aletheia cut through the waves with the confidence of one who knows the sea not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a partner to be respected. And the Oasis of Moonlight followed close beside it, faithful as a shadow that has chosen to possess its own light. On the decks, the crew distributed themselves between the tasks of navigation and those moments of contemplation that the sea naturally invites. For there is something in the ocean's infinite horizon that compels the mind to expand, to think beyond its habitual limits, to ask the questions that daily life teaches us to defer. Hael stood leaning against the prow, the wind striking his face and his eyes fixed on that imprecise point where the blue of the sky and the blue of the sea meet and merge, as though the boundary between what lies above and what lies below were merely a human convention, an imaginary line that the infinite ignores with elegant indifference. In his thoughts, Carthage; in his heart, Makeda; and in his hands, the responsibility of proving himself worthy of everything that destiny was weaving with the patience of weavers who work at scales human hands never fully reach. Makeda occupied herself with the quiet attentiveness of one who prefers action to waiting, helping where she could, watching the horizon with those eyes that carried at once the depth of a royal lineage and the open curiosity of a young woman still discovering the world in its multiple dimensions. She had grown up among palaces and protocols, amid lessons in diplomacy and courtly etiquette. But she had also grown up beside Amina, a mother who had never allowed the walls of the palace to be wider than her daughter's heart. And it was this Makeda, the one who had learned to feel beyond the borders of protocol, who now sailed toward her own destiny, as uncertain and as courageous as any human being who chooses to love, knowing that love comes with no guarantees. Amina walked the deck with the serenity of one who had made peace with the sea long ago. Not because the sea is always gentle, she knew that better than anyone, but because she had learned that resistance to the inevitable consumes more energy than conscious acceptance, that the difference between being destroyed by a storm and crossing it intact lies rarely in brute force and almost always in the quality of the inner anchorage the sailor carries. She observed her daughter from a distance with that blend of pride and anticipatory longing that accompanies mothers when they realize they have raised someone capable of following her own path. the genuine happiness of seeing a child grown, tempered by the gentle melancholy of knowing that such growth means inevitably a certain distance. Helena and Edith shared the space at the stern with the quiet familiarity of those who have no need to fill every second with words. The familiarity that exists only between people who have crossed together at least one moment when the world might have come apart and did not, who have built between themselves a private language made of silences, gestures, and glances that require no translation. The name that opened an old wound. There are words that arrive without knowing what they carry. Words spoken lightly by the one who utters them and received as weight by the one who hears, not because of any carelessness, but because certain memories sleep in places that even those who carry them cannot fully map, and that any word in the world may awaken when the hour is right and the guard is down. It was Alexander who spoke first, and he did so with the naturalness of one who does not imagine that a word can be a stone cast into a still lake, generating ripples that expand far beyond the point of impact. He was at the helm, his gaze fixed on the southern horizon where the waters were beginning to change their temperament, and the wind to carry with it other sense of other lands, other peoples, other histories. When the name rose to his lips, almost like a sigh, Massalia, his homeland, the city where he and Helena had been born, had grown up, and had built, without knowing it, the foundations of everything they would come to be. The name left his mouth with the involuntary tenderness with which the names of most beloved things are pronounced. Soft, laden, complete, bearing that quality of names that are not merely sounds, but anchors for entire dimensions of existence that condense into a single syllable. Alexander spoke of Massalia with that particular longing of those who departed by choice and not by obligation, the longing that does not embitter, yet presses against the chest in a way that is not exactly pain and not exactly joy, but something that exists between the two, in that imprecise space where the most truthful feelings tend to dwell. He spoke of the streets, the harbor, the light that fell differently there, more golden, more ancient, as though the sun knew it was illuminating a place layered with history. And he spoke of their parents, the parents of both of them, his and Helena's, who had been long-standing friends through a bond that until then no one had fully mapped, the Order of the Sword. The name settled over the deck like a bird no one had expected to see, silently, yet in a way that immediately captured the attention of all who were nearby, with that quality of names that suggests depth, secret, a web extending beyond what the eye can reach. It was Edith who noticed first. And she noticed because she knew Helena better than anyone, because she had learned to read her the way one reads a book so beloved it is memorized between the lines, in the white spaces, in what is not written but pulses beneath every word. Edith saw the precise moment in which the mention of her parents reached Helena's ears and found there not merely a sound, but a wound. Old, scarred over on the surface but not within, one of those wounds that time learns to navigate around but never truly closes. Helena's face did not crumble at once, but something in it shifted, subtly, the way light changes when a cloud passes before the sun without anyone needing to announce it. Helena's silence was more eloquent than any speech could have been. It was the silence of one who remembers, of one dragged back to a specific moment in the past by the irresistible force of effective memory, that force which asks no permission and accepts no negotiation. She remembered the day her parents went out to fish, an ordinary morning, with ordinary sunlight, with ordinary farewells that no one imagined would be the last. She remembered waiting. She remembered continuing to wait. She remembered the precise moment when waiting transformed into something different, something that could no longer be called waiting because hope had given way to a certainty she would spend years trying not to accept. They did not return, and the sea, immense and indifferent, kept its secret of where it had carried them. held up by the love of those who stayed. There is a kind of weeping that does not weaken, that, on the contrary, strengthens. It is not the weeping of despair, not the weeping that cries out for an answer that will not come. It is the weeping of release, the kind that happens when the heart finally finds a space safe enough to open itself and let out what it has been holding for too long. What hurt, yes, but which at the same time cleansed, which relieved, which restored to the soul a lightness it had forgotten was possible to feel. The women on the deck drew close to Helena with the quiet instinct of those who recognize another's pain without needing explanation, because some pains require no words to be understood, because there are forms of suffering that are universal, that cross cultures, languages, and personal histories, and arrive directly at that place within every human being where the purest empathy resides. Edith came first, then Makeda, then Amina, and the embraces joined into a circle that was not merely physical but also spiritual, a circle of feminine solidarity as ancient as love itself, as necessary as air. The tears came, Helena's and those of the women holding her, and the ocean around them seemed for a moment to lean in slightly, as though it too wished to be part of that gesture of consolation, with that quality the sea sometimes has of turning its rocking into companionship. Nevim, who had been observing the scene from a respectful distance, made the most honest gesture he knew how to make. He approached Alexander, who stood motionless at the helm, his face turned toward the horizon, but with every particle of his attention directed at Helena, and, without saying a word, gave him a few quiet pats on the back. They were simple pats, brief, the kind that in the language of male camaraderie carry the weight of an entire speech. They said, "I know, you are not alone. This will pass, and we will be here when it does." Alexander received the gesture with a nod, his jaw slightly set, the containment of one who feels deeply but understands that that moment belonged to Helena, not to him, and that the best he could do was hold the helm steady and keep the ship on course. Hael approached Helena last, and when he arrived, he stood still for a moment, like someone searching for the right words and not finding them, because there were no right words, because there are moments in human experience that exceed the capacity of language to contain them, and so he simply held her, with strength, with presence, with all his intention concentrated in that gesture. And he said nothing. And that silence spoke more than any word ever could, with that particular eloquence of silences inhabited by people who have decided to be completely present. Helena, surrounded by all those she loved, felt something difficult to name, but which anyone who has experienced it recognizes immediately: the sensation of being truly held up. Not in the physical sense, though the arms around her were physical and real, but in the deepest sense of the word. Held up by the presence of those who had chosen to be there. Held up by a love that needed no summoning because it had already been present before the pain arrived. Held up by the certainty that whatever weight she carried, she did not need to carry it alone. That there were shoulders available, hearts open, hands extended. And that certainty, in that moment on the deck of the Aletheia, between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, was more powerful than any remedy the world could offer. When the tears finally yielded, not because the pain had disappeared, but because it had been honored sufficiently, seen and acknowledged with the respect it deserved, Helena raised her face and looked around with those eyes that weeping had left deeper, clearer, the way it always does after good rain. And she gave thanks, not with a speech, not with elaborate words, but with the simple and true gratitude of one who has been saved from herself by the right presence at the right moment. The gateway between two worlds. The Strait of Gibraltar does not announce itself with brilliance or thunder. It arrives first in the air, shifting in quality in a way that is subtle yet unmistakable, carrying something warmer, more mineral, as though the air itself knew it was about to cross the boundary between two worlds and wished to prepare the lungs for what was to come. Then it arrives in the color of the waters, which darken and then clarify in rapid alternation, a reflection of the dance between the Atlantic and Mediterranean currents that meet and contest for space at that specific point on the globe where Europe and Africa almost touch, separated only by a strip of water that, throughout the entirety of human history, has served as both barrier and passage, both ending and beginning. Alexander stood at the helm with the total concentration the stretch demanded. The currents were strong and unpredictable there, and the navigation required not only technical experience, but that intuition which develops only after many hours of silent dialogue with the sea, after many times of having erred and corrected, of having felt the ship respond to the command of one's hands, and having learned to trust that response. But there was also in his gaze, beneath the concentration, a layer of emotion he made no effort to conceal, because the Strait of Gibraltar was, for him and Helena, the threshold of return. From here, turning east, lay the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean led to Massalia. Led home, a word that now carried so much more than it had when they were children, a word that voluntary exile had weighted with a density only those who chose to leave and may choose to return can fully feel. For Amina and Makeda, the strait meant something else entirely, the drawing near of the land they knew, of the scents they would recognize even with eyes closed, of the sounds they had learned before learning anything else. Africa lay on the other side of that passage, not as a geographical concept, not as a point on a map, but as a living, pulsing presence, laden with effective memory, with that specificity of presences we inhabit before we have sufficient consciousness to know we are being inhabited by them, that become part of us before we are able to choose. Amina had made that journey home other times in her life, but there was something different about this one. Perhaps the awareness that this time the return was not provisional, that she was coming back not merely to a home, but to a new chapter of a story she had helped to write, and that was now preparing to unfold in ways even she could not entirely foresee. Nevem remained in contemplative silence for long minutes, leaning against the ship's rail, his eyes moving along the southern horizon where the line of the African coast was beginning to suggest itself like a promise not yet precise, a golden shadow at the boundary between sea and sky that might be mistaken for low cloud by one who did not know what to look for, but which trained eyes recognized immediately as land. There was something almost spiritual in that sight. The land that rises on the horizon after days of open sea holds the power to touch something primitive within the human being, something that came from before words and has not yet learned to be translated into language, something that simply responds, vibrates, recognizes. Edith, upon seeing the coast drawing near, took Helena's hand without asking permission, with the absolute familiarity of one who has earned that right across a lifetime of presence. And Helena looked at her aunt and then at the horizon, allowing the contradictory emotions to coexist without attempting to separate or name them. The longing for Massalia that pulsed in her chest and the enthusiasm for Carthage that grew with every mile covered toward the south, both true, both necessary, both part of the same heart large enough to contain paradoxes. The land of the sun finally in sight. And then Amina pointed, with her arm extended and her index finger directed toward the port side of the ship, with that calm precision of one who has no need to raise her voice to be heard, because when something true is spoken with sufficient conviction, it finds its way to the heart of those who need to hear it without competing with the noise of the world. And when she spoke, her voice carried that specific quality of one who announces something sacred, not with pomp, not with calculated drama, but with the deep simplicity of truths that require no ornament to be recognized as truths. She said, "I can see part of my Mother Earth, the land of the sun." And the silence that followed was the kind of silence that occurs when something important has been said and the universe pauses to allow the words to settle. Africa revealed itself slowly, as though it knew that the most beautiful things must not be surrendered all at once. That gradual revelation is a form of respect both for the beauty being revealed and for the gaze that receives it. first, only a faint line on the horizon, golden and imprecise as a dream that has not yet decided whether it will become memory or reality. Then, little by little, shapes, low hills covered in vegetation of a color unlike anything those eyes had seen on the European coasts, a deeper green, warmer, as though the very plants knew they lived beneath a more generous sun and had learned to hold that light inside each leaf. And then the scent, that scent of warm earth that the maritime wind carried in intermittent waves, like offerings sent ahead to the anticipation of those drawing near. Makeda stood at the prow now, her hair loose in the sea wind, with a smile that was not of superficial joy, but of something deeper, the smile of one who recognizes. She had left Carthage as a princess, carrying the weight of the expectations and responsibilities that title imposes at every dawn, and had sailed through unknown seas, faced storms both inner and outer, formed friendships that had redefined what she had thought possible between people of different worlds. And now she was returning, not exactly the same person who had departed, for true crossings never return us unchanged, but someone more complete, richer within, more conscious of what truly matters when all the layers of protocol and convention are stripped away by the honesty of life lived. Hael came to stand beside Makeda without either of them having needed to coordinate it. Between them, there existed a gravitational field of their own, that kind of attraction that does not depend on planning because it exists at a level more fundamental than any conscious decision. He looked at the approaching coast with eyes that had never before seen Africa, eyes that, therefore, beheld it with that specific form of attention only a first encounter provides, the attention of one who has no prior memories overlaying what is being seen in this moment. And what he saw was magnificent. Alexander adjusted the Aletheia's course to sail closer to the shore, following Amina's guidance. The coastal waters were clearer here, a translucent turquoise that allowed glimpses of the sandy bottom in certain places, a sight that had something unreal about it, too beautiful to be simply accepted without wonder. Amina guided Alexander with gestures and brief words, indicating the specific point where the anchors should be dropped. A natural anchorage sheltered by two arms of land that formed a small, almost secret bay, the kind that anyone who did not know it would sail past without noticing. It was one of Amina's secrets, one of those places that memory keeps with special care, visited rarely but never forgotten, that remain within us as precise coordinates even after years of absence. The moment the anchors were dropped had the quality of punctuation, the sound of iron cutting the water, the chain extending, the weight finding the bottom, and the vessel feeling the resistance, gradually arresting its advance. A sound Alexander had heard hundreds of times in his life, but which on that specific afternoon, in that specific bay, with those specific people around him, rang out like an affirmation, like the physical confirmation of an arrival that was at once geographical and so much more than geographical. They had arrived, to Africa, to Carthage, to the next chapter. An arrival that is also a beginning. There are arrivals that are also departures, not in the sense that something ends, but in the sense that something begins. The small secret bay where the Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight had dropped their anchors was that kind of place. A gateway disguised as an anchorage, a threshold dressed in stone and water and coastal vegetation. Those who disembarked from it would not be exactly the same people who had embarked in Concarneau, because the voyage had done its quiet work, as true voyages always do, transforming from within each one who is willing to be transformed, adding layers of experience, of emotion, and of understanding that cannot be undone, that become part of the substance of who one is. Alexander was the first to step onto solid ground, and in doing so, he felt beneath his feet the particular solidity of that soil, unlike any other his feet had ever known. There was something in the African earth that communicated a different kind of antiquity, not merely the chronological antiquity that any patch of land shares equally, but an antiquity of presence, a density of accumulated human history that seemed to rise from the depths of the ground and reach whoever walked upon it with enough attention to perceive it. He extended his hand to Helena, who descended from the ship with that graceful balance that years of life at sea confer. And the two stood side by side for a moment, gazing inland toward the hills that rose beyond the coastal vegetation, green, golden, vast, and mysterious. Makeda descended to the soil of her homeland with a gesture that seemed at once involuntary and inevitable. She bent briefly and touched the earth with the palms of her hands, as though she needed that tactile confirmation, that direct contact between skin and soil, to fully integrate what was happening. It was an ancient, primordial gesture, the gesture of one who remembers where she comes from, who pays homage to the earth that formed her before asking that same earth to witness who she has become. Amina, watching her daughter do this, felt something release inside her chest, a tension she had carried throughout the entire voyage without a precise name for it, now dissolving with the gentleness of ice melting in sunlight. Hael remained for a moment at the edge of the ship, watching the scene unfolding before him. Those people who had become his chosen family, setting foot on land that was entirely new to him and that for some of them was memory and root. And he felt, with that clarity that visits human beings rarely, but when it does leaves a permanent mark, that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Not because the path had been easy, not because all the uncertainties had dissolved. The Grande Mansa had not yet given his answer. The future was still a horizon without defined contours. But because there were people at his side, because there was love at his side. And he had learned, that morning in Concarneau, with warm tea in his hands and mist in the air, that this, only this, was enough to set out. Carthage awaited them beyond the hills, with its palaces of pale stone, its noisy and perfumed markets, its skies that the sun painted in colors that seemed impossible until they were seen, its streets where Latin, Greek, Punic, and dozens of other languages crossed and blended like rivers emptying into the same sea. Carthage awaited them with the Grande Mansa, a man whose word carried the weight of a destiny, whose consent would open or close the door to the story that Hael and Makeda were beginning to write together. But before any audience, before any courtly protocol, there was this moment, this simple and magnificent moment of being there, together, alive, with feet on the earth and hearts wider than when they had departed. And as the African sun began its golden descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky with those colors that exist only on that continent, that deep orange which seems to have been born before any word that might attempt to describe it, the crew of the Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight stood gathered on the small beach of the secret bay in shared silence, looking out at the horizon that was now south and future and promise. Because at sea, as in life, the greatest adventures are not the battles fought with swords, but the discoveries that transform us from within, one dawn at a time. And that dawn, that arrival, that circle of embraces on the deck, those golden cakes and that warm tea before the sun had transformed each of them in ways that time would not erase. It had left its mark, the way salt leaves its mark on the body of those who sail, invisible from a distance, but undeniable to the touch. Permanent, true, forever. In the next episode, the gates of Carthage will open, and with them, the question this entire journey had been preparing. The Grande Mansa will receive Alexander and Helena with the hospitality owed to a promise kept, but Hael's reception will be of another nature entirely, demanding that the blacksmith demonstrate not merely that he loves Makeda, but that he is capable of bearing the weight of everything that love represents in a kingdom that measures men by criteria no forge in Brittany ever taught him to meet. Amina, who knows Makeda's father better than any diplomatic protocol could reveal, will play a decisive role, not as intermediary, but as witness of character, the kind of voice that the powerful listen to when all others have already been set aside. And Makeda, who has returned transformed, will have to demonstrate to the man who knows her best that the transformation was gain, not loss, that the sea made her greater, not estranged from who she always was. The fate of an improbable love will be decided not with swords, not with titles, but with the same currency from which it was always built: presence, truth, and the courage to be completely there.